TheMagnifier Podcast, the podcast dedicated to the impact of AI on creative industries.
The idea isn't to do a typical AI news review. The idea is to help you each week understand the key signals, analyze them, and above all, understand the real impact, whether you're in film, architecture, design, advertising, or video games. The idea is to guide you in understanding concretely how you can use AI in your daily work and to benefit from the feedback of players who have already implemented this technology in their processes.
We'll talk about tools, of course, but especially about workflow, production, feedback, law, professions, and use cases.
So as you've understood, the idea isn't to give you a list of everything that came out each week. The idea is to help you understand concretely what creative AI is actually transforming in the creative industries. Each week, we'll therefore look back at the major trends and not just list the news of new models and new platforms. For that, once again, you have the TheMagnifier media outlet to accompany you daily. The idea is to help you understand the major trends and to go into more detail each week on themes such as the impact of AI in cinema, the impact of AI in design professions, in fashion professions, in photography. We're going to list and take each week for the first 10 episodes, the list of creative industries that we're going to dissect and help you understand how AI impacts each of them. And after that, we'll have guests who will come and participate to give you concrete feedback. Guests who could be founders of AI studios, people working in the creative industries who have already integrated artificial intelligence into their creative process. And just a little bit of teasing, the second episode will be dedicated to the impact of AI in cinema. And we'll be able to share feedback with you following our participation in the Cannes Film Festival and the Biarritz Nouvelle Vague Film Festival this year to share the state of the art, what the major trends are, what the opinions and counter-opinions are on the impact of AI in cinema, and especially how to use it.
This is the ambition of this podcast.
Before starting on the news of the week, maybe Brice, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and I'll do the same afterwards.
Thank you very much, Romain. I'll introduce myself, Brice Hébert, co-founder of TheMagnifier. What you need to know is that I have a background in cinema. After studying cinema, I was an assistant set designer on feature film sets. The last two to date are the last two feature films by Daniel Auteuil. For over a year, I've moved on to AI because I was already interested in AI. That was summer 2023 with the release of Runway, which pushed me to make a few short films. And it made me want to continue on this path, which has allowed me today to be an AI director on commercial film projects or AI videos, where I design the storyboard, I produce, and I deliver commercial films to brands like Dior, Sanofi, Helvetia Baloise, Roche. And Romain, don't you have a bit of a tech side?
Indeed. We are complementary simply because Brice comes from the film industry, as he was able to explain to you. On my side, I come from the tech world. I've always worked on artificial intelligence topics, first as an innovation and strategy consultant, and then within various companies and startups. Today, I've launched a PTG company, a company whose objective is to support the players in the creative industries in integrating AI into their processes, and also to train each of the professions in all the creative industries. And as a result, when we met with Brice, we very quickly launched this idea of creating a media outlet and launching a podcast on the impact of AI in the creative industries together. Because Brice, as you've understood, will be able to bring his expertise on the film industry, but also on creative professions over the course of the episodes. And on my side, I'll have the opportunity, I hope, to bring you a bit more technical information and to explain to you concretely through tools, workflows, but also slightly more technical terms, how to integrate AI into your creative processes. So now that you know a bit more about this podcast and why we're launching it and who we are, Brice, I'll let you move on to the first part of the podcast, which is to share with us what your news of the week is.
So what stands out for me this week is the release of Flux 3 by Black Forest Lab. And what I take from it is that despite the American competition in terms of models and the other competition coming from China, well, Black Forest Lab, which is German, right? It's a German company that is the only one in Europe, to my knowledge, is doing pretty well, honestly. They've been on the market for almost 2 years now, and they're still here.
In what way? For example, there are big leaders on the market like Runway for video, which has always been very good. What makes Flux 3 different from, say, Runway?
Well, that is to say, let's be honest, they all have the same goal, better fluidity of motion. But looking at the results coming out in video, since it's video, they're doing pretty well. Honestly, this came out yesterday. It was released on Thursday, July 23rd. Honestly, the results are quite convincing.
Okay, so you could replace in your creative processes on your films Seedance with LTX3 for the video part.
Well, you know how it is, Romain. When there's a project, you have tons of constraints. We have to test all the models. And yes, it can replace it, but you're never sure. At the start of production, we test everything. It gets into the process, but then it still has to be validated in production.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about regarding this week's news?
What also caught my attention is Kling allowing MCPs with Claude, right? So if you're used to working with Claude, it can be really great to connect directly. Yeah,
that's a major trend. Flora does it too. All the players are getting into it. I think there's been a bit of a feature race. Everyone's chasing each other. First, it was integrating agents to build workflows without having to build them manually in the platforms. And then everyone starts launching these MCPs to make certain features accessible from CLIs, whether it's Claude or another market player. So we also realized that here the creative side is really taking on a conversational dimension. We're moving away from the prompt. We went through workflows that we built manually. And what I'm seeing today, and you're absolutely right to bring up this MCP part, is that creation is once again really taking on a very conversational aspect.
How would you explain to an audience, a beginner audience, what MCPs are?
MCPs are a bit, to put it very easily, simply, they're a bit like a USB key that allows you to integrate an external tool into a platform. So you'll be able to plug in, use a tool like Itfield or tools that offer MCP like Flora, as you said, on Kling from another interface without going directly to the platform.
I'm with you completely. I was going to use the same analogy. MCPs are a USB key and APs are really thought of more for developers. MCPs are all thought of for the rest of the audience. So I think the audience will be more familiar with MCPs than APs.
In fact, MCPs allow you to give the AI access to external services and data, unlike APs, which allow a human developer to connect several tools together.
Couldn't be any clearer.
Well, I think so.
And on your end, what caught your attention in this week's news, Romain?
On my end, since I really started with it, it's my favorite tool. I'm going to talk to you about Reve. Reve, which has the specificity, unlike other models on the market, of having a layering system, meaning that Reve will break down images into lots of subparts and therefore allow very precise editing of the different parts of an image without systematically regenerating everything. So Reve, why this week? Because Reve launched several new features on their platform that I also invite you to go check out. Because Reve, what's interesting, even if we tend to prefer tools with infinite canvases that allow to centralize all the models on the market, my very honest opinion is that Reve, on the precision and image editing side, offers an interface and a user experience that is really super interesting. In addition to the ability of their model, as I was telling you, to deconstruct images and allow them to be edited very precisely, unlike other models on the market. I'm not saying there aren't other models that allow image editing, but it's still through prompting. Whereas here, Reve really allows you visually to click to select the part of the image that you want to edit. And so Reve, there aren't other models that allow image editing, but it's still through prompting. Whereas here, Reve really allows you visually to click, to select the part of the image that you want to edit. And so Reve created layer systems that gather all these subparts of the image. So you can imagine a landscape while being, for example, a beach on the horizon, and on the horizon, there is therefore the sea, the sky, the sun, boats, swimmers. You're going to be able to specify. So those are going to be the big layers, all those elements. And inside these layers, so these subparts, you're going to have even more subparts. So for example, the boat, if it's a sailboat, you'll be able to select the sail, the hull. If it's a swimmer, you'll be able to select the head, the hair, the swimsuit. There you go. You'll really be able to modify each part of the image very precisely. So that's the first new feature that Reve launched last week. And they also launched something interesting called reframe. So it's always complicated when you start with an image that you want to resize to the right dimensions. Here, Reve modifies the orientation and scale of an image while preserving the composition. So today, rather than cropping or having to restrict, let's say, the scope of an image, you'll be able to really resize an image while preserving its composition. So there's one last feature of Reve, and then I'll have another news item I'd like to talk to you about. But so the third feature, new feature of Reve after layer groups and reframe, is Reve colors. So Reve colors allows you to color very precisely areas of the image with reference colors. So, for example, if you have shades defined by hex codes, or that you want to sample with an eyedropper or whatever to modify on an image, because on a product, on a visual of clothing, of physical products, you want a very precise color, or even on logos, well, whatever. I find this feature very interesting. And what I would advise really to create reference images in Reve, because there's such a level of precision and such a user experience that you can really reach a level of precision truly 100%. Then integrate those images into one of your creation tools with the famous infinite workflows, and so start from very precise reference images rather than generating them on those other platforms. So there you go. Brice, did you have a question? Stop dreaming. All of this is possible with Reve.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. You don't have anything better? No, I don't have anything better, but I'm not going to get into that.
How much do you get paid every time? How much do you get paid every time you say Reve?
Listen, for once, it's one of the rare tools, even if it's honestly one of the best and one of my favorites, along with Flora, to be completely transparent. It's one of the only tools that doesn't have a referral system yet. So really, there's no monetary interest. It's pure passion and a very deep love for Reve, the tool I started with 1.5 years ago now, and with which I'm lucky enough to have a relationship. Indeed, it's a love story. It's a love story. Second news item of the week I wanted to talk about before we move on, maybe to the more thematic part, more general and less about current news. It's Flora launching timelines. So timelines, for those who don't know, is a video editing tool. So like Premiere Pro, like all those tools used for the post-production part, from now on, you can really go from several videos to a final video with all the post-production you can imagine directly in Flora. So once again, this avoids leaving the tool with the final shots, importing them elsewhere, and also rationalizing the subscriptions and the cost that these tool suites can represent. So Brice, I'll let you take over. I'll just explain again. So as you've seen, this podcast is a bit special. It's the first of a long series, we hope. We started with the intro, of course, by introducing the podcast to explain what our goals were and what we wanted to bring you. Then the second part of the podcast, so on the news that we just finished, and we're going to move on to the third and final part, which could then potentially be followed by the intervention or participation of an external speaker to share their feedback with us once again. the thematic part. So the thematic part today, we're going to do a very general part to talk about the impact of AI in creative industries and what are the major movements or the major analyses, also with some figures that we'll be able to share with you. And again, in the future, in all the next episodes, we'll focus more on specific industries rather than coming back to very general topics like today, which is once again a bit of a special episode. So Brice, I'll let you start maybe with the first insight you want to share. I think we have, let's say, 3. So I suggest you do the first one. I'd like to emphasize a second one, and you can finish with the last one.
Sounds good. As a first insight, I want to talk about how prompting is no longer enough. It's really the workflow that has a big advantage of knowing. I want to say prompting, it's no longer enough in the sense that you have to know each strength and weakness of each model, know very well how each one works, to then assemble a good workflow that works to your advantage.
There's no point in being a prompt expert because the prompt expert is the AI itself, and you just have to ask the AI to create the prompt to do what you want to do.
Now, on this last point, prompting is no longer enough. I don't agree with you there because I just did a recent production, which is still under NDA, but the prompt is still important. It's true that we have to see its proper place, but then again, it's true that the workflow is more important than the prompt.
No, but that's very true. But you see, for example, you can ask the AI to create your prompt rather than writing it yourself. And what I mean is that once you have a first version, well, more complete with lots of elements maybe you wouldn't have thought of, to customize it, specify it yourself, you see? So yes, it has an impact, and I completely agree with you. On the other hand, I think that the prompt today, I mean, we can replace a quality of the prompt with maybe several steps in a workflow to achieve the same end result. If you see what I mean?
Yes, I see what you mean. You mean the system prompt.
For example, the system prompt, but also the fact that, for example, to modify or add something to an image, well, before an object, for example, on an existing image in a specific place, maybe before, indeed, you had to be very, very, very precise in the prompt. Maybe now, thanks to a workflow, you can generate a first version, then a second workflow step, ask it to move the object, then in a third step, tell it to adjust the color properly. So being able to break it down like that into lots of sub-steps ultimately reduces the importance of the prompt, because iteration is possible with more precision, whereas before we were really in conversational interfaces for image generation a bit more in one shot, where indeed the prompt was of utmost importance. Whereas today, being able to divide a creation into lots of sub-steps allows to reduce, from my point of view, the impact and importance of the prompt.
I'd go further. What this workflow allows is to make variations on a larger scale. I see it in everything related to packaging. It's huge. All the variations you can make today with workflows, it's impressive. If you start from a simple drawing of a packaging, for example, of a cream, and all the combinations in terms of design, in terms of packaging color, in terms of logo placement, it's huge. All the variations today with a good workflow that saves you a day of shooting, you know.
Yes, to also come back to, obviously, and we will come back to all these use cases later. Obviously, the use cases are endless. I think what we need to remember is that from the moment the final output is an image or a video, whatever the purpose, whether it's images for e-commerce, whether it's an advertisement, whether it's a short film, whether it's from the moment there is a creation, visual, image, or video, once again, no matter the use case of this final deliverable, AI is transforming today the way of creating these images, and really allows you to reduce costs and reduce production times. And I don't want to expand here on this subject, or at least not today, but it's good to keep it in mind. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them also in the comments of the podcast, and Brice and I will take the time to answer you. But yeah, just keep that phrase in mind without going into too much detail today. And so I would also like to come back to what we were saying before with the famous MCPs. That is to say that today it is possible to launch the workflows that you have already built or not via MCPs, and therefore to be able to potentially import files, Google Drive folders with, for example, pack shots of your products, to launch them via MCP and the request that goes with it, so the prompt that goes with it, so that the pack shots are, for example, positioned with a certain background, or that a product easily generated UGCs for social media or whatever. So yeah, same on this part of automation and of efficiency and of optimization of your workflows. We will also come back in more detail on during the following episodes.
De ton côté, quel insight tu retiens?
Well, my belief, and that's also why I launched a PTG company, my belief is that it's going to be easier and easier to create content, to create images, to create videos. I think I'd like to highlight for this second insight really that yes, speed is increasing, but even without talking about speed and the advantages that can have, and we can obviously also come back to the disadvantages and limits of during next episodes. But what I would like to highlight is that today we can talk about technology, but what remains central is taste. It's taste, it's artistic direction, it's human thought, how you are going to direct the what you are going to ask it to do, why, with what aesthetic, what story you are going to tell. I think that today we are very much in a phase of passion and of the beginning of a relationship with this new technology, where we are obsessed with the quality of what we can do with it and the renders. But in reality, it's not the quality of an image or a visual effect that makes you appreciate a video, a movie, or remember a message. So what matters today, in my opinion, is really this taste. And I would go even further than taste. It's the know-how and the ability to write stories and to tell stories, thanks to which remains a tool. And once again, AE does not replace taste, does not replace a good scenario, does not replace a good script. A is at the service of taste, of creativity, but there you go. It does not replace it. And to make it short, and so I'll wrap up. There you go. For me, a differentiating element in the long run will be taste and stories.
I would go even, I'll add to that, Romain, the one who knows how to create emotions with it, they have a strong future.
That's very well summarized. Maybe a third and last insight. It seems to me that you had some figures to share with us, Brice.
Yeah, absolutely. In the latest key figures, so Netflix revealed that about 300 of the content offered on the platform had used generative AI in 2026. What do you think about that, Romain?
What type of content did you see a little bit? I mean, what was the type of format? Was it anime of?
Well, they remain quite vague. Let's not lie. It's really to please the financial market, right? Which is really on the AI momentum, but it would mainly be on post-production. So it would be to reduce costs and to go faster.
Okay, super interesting. Well, in any case, what we can see, right, is that all the major players in the market, and even in parallel, something that is linked to this subject, is that it seems to me that Netflix also bought the A studio of a major American actor,
Ben Affleck. Exactly.
So we see that it's really also moving. Within the existing platforms. So the subject is taken very seriously, and I think that all these platforms today are thinking about how to create content, how to create series, movies differently. Whether it's during the pre-production, production, or post-production phases. But we can come back to this in more detail in an episode dedicated to cinema.
Absolutely. And on your end, do you have key figures in other sectors?
What I find interesting, also coming from tech and having worked a lot in groups, including in the sector, and even in the finance sector, I think there is a real subject today. We hear more and more about it, is that we have trouble identifying the impact of AI really in the processes, what it saves, and having very precise KPIs to estimate its added value. I have the impression that in the creative sectors, it seems to be much simpler, because in reality we talk well about the same indicators, right, of cost and of time. But since these are actions that are much more concrete and that are more materializable, I have the impression that it's going to be much simpler to estimate the impact of AI in the creative industries than in industries or in jobs where there are a little fewer tangible aspects and where the deliverable is in a way a bit infinite. For example, if we talk about application development subjects or well, whatever the subject, whatever the processes, since these are processes that do not always have a final deliverable, but that continue over time, and that there is a lot of aversion to somewhat external effects, I find that it is much more complicated to estimate the impact of AI in large on this kind of more operational jobs. And my feeling, and I will try to highlight it to you also through a figure, is that today 86% of creators use generative AI, and that comes from a study that was conducted globally by Adobe among 16,000 creators. And finally, we see that there is an adoption that was still very rapid. That is to say that just a year and a half ago, even a year, I think we had rendering qualities and models that were not yet sufficiently precise and qualitative to claim to be integrated into creative processes, and even less in industries and companies. Today, that's the case. Also on subject's second figure, so that I allow myself to share with you, is that 77% of marketing teams use or invest in generative AI. So it's a study that was done by Canva, and so same 77% of marketing teams use generative AI. I don't have the figure in mind, but if we compare it potentially with finance teams or legal compliance teams, I'm not sure we reach this level of adoption or investment.
There's no economy of scale, if you will, in marketing, in ads, in books, a commercial. Whereas changing things in an industry, in a company, for example, automating a task, that's a whole other scale. Can you imagine a company director who has to call consultants to automate tasks with Claude Code? I don't know, but you call 4 or 5 consultants before making a decision because it's so crucial and important. That
personally, I don't really agree on that point, in the sense that marketing teams produce content depending on the industry's business, whether it's pack shots or even in the event industry on the production of or creation of booths for events. I mean, tons of things. To me, these are still business processes in which, unlike, for example, you were talking about the code example, I've lived that experience. It's very hard to evaluate the impact of integrating AI within developer teams or internal tech teams. On the integration of generative AI, so where we're not talking about creating code, but where we're talking about creating images, visuals, videos, I think it's already much simpler to evaluate the impact. But above all, the impact can be positive very quickly, because once again, today we're reaching quality levels in the creation of pack shots, 3D visuals, photography for shoots. I mean, whatever. That are indistinguishable from what we used to do in the real world with real film crews, with physical products, etc. So yeah, my opinion on that is that the words are different, but the way to integrate it remains the same. And to conclude, the impact of generative AI in corporate creative processes, and not just marketing or advertising functions, once again, but really any type of creative industry, is today more easily quantifiable and more easily achievable. We're going to finish up with the third and final part of the podcast, the creation that caught our attention this week. So maybe, Brice, you want to talk about what stood out to you or what caught your attention the most this past week?
What stood out to me was the release of the latest short film by Goblin. For people who don't know, it's a studio that was created by Jack London. He's a bit of a legend in the field because he actually raised funds, if I'm not mistaken, this last year to create his production studio. So yeah, he released his latest short film, Pomegranate, which is available on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, Goblin. And yeah, to talk a bit about it, well, what they do is kind of it's the flagship, it's the pilot fish of the ecosystem, I'd say, in audiovisual AI cinema. Because actually his strength, and this is what we need to remember, is that today creating videos, images, that's not enough anymore. And Jack London's strength is that he created a community. He knew how to create a universe that is his own universe. He knew how to create characters. He knew how to create stories. And little by little, by posting on Instagram, he started 2-3 years ago. He accumulated more and more followers. He has over 1 million followers on Instagram, over 1 million followers on YouTube. There you go. He raised funds to create his studio, to employ people, because there are still about 10 people behind it. And there you go. What I take away from it is mostly knowing that today what's most important is creating a community.
And so this film, sorry, I didn't catch, is it made solely with AI or is it a hybrid?
It is 100% AI, except for the voiceovers, the voices, which are actors' voices.
Well, listen, we're going to kind of meet on the tweet of the week. For me, it's the same. It concerns a short film that was produced by Neill Blomkamp, who is the director of District 9 and Elysium, who is really getting into, on the subject of artificial intelligence, and who launched his first short film called Nightborne, which is also available on YouTube. So which lasts about 10 minutes. And I think it would be interesting for you to go to check it out, because here, for once, we're really dealing with someone who masters narrative arcs, who masters the way to tell stories and to create a connection with the characters. And so I invite you to go and check it out and watch it. So yes, it lasts 13 minutes, I believe. And you'll see that the images are quite crazy. We can come back to it notably next week, like in the next episode. But there are still certain limits today in making AI understand certain physical or spatial realities. And so several tricks that can be put in place to try to bypass them. But honestly, here, on a rendering like the one that the Neill Blomkamp managed to achieve, it's still quite impressive. And I think it's kind of right there in the top tier of the best AI films available today.
And did he have a team with him to make it?
I have no idea. That's a great question. I just know that he used Stable Diffusion 2 for the video generation part, and that on the other hand, he did use real people and real voices, just like you were saying, for the acting part. So basically, they brought together, I think, about 30 people whom they photographed and recorded their voices with an agreement to use their image and their voice to then integrate them into the film. So it's also interesting to see this way of working, starting from real people to build films in which they don't actually act, but they aren't generated people who don't exist.
And I'd like to point out to the audience that this week we chose 2 works. We didn't consult each other beforehand, but the 2 works we liked best were team efforts. So contrary to what people say, sure, you can create on your own, but honestly, when there's a team behind you,
for sure, you can't be an expert in everything.
It's just not possible.
No, but thank you so much for listening to this first episode of the podcast. The next one will be dedicated to the impact of AI in the film industry. We'll be able to give you more than just feedback, but insights from our participation in the Cannes Film Festival and the Biarritz Film Festival, on the various discussions we had, on the opinions, counter opinions, and share with you a bit of the state of the art of AI's place in the film industry today.
On my end, likewise, I'll share feedback on trends and opinions from participating in the Monaco AI Film Fest as a speaker, where I can talk to you about the perspective of AI integration in China, Europe, and the US.
Thank you for listening, and feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, things that you're wondering about, that you want us to analyze perhaps a bit more precisely in the following episodes. Once again, the idea is quite naturally through the discussions I have with Brice to understand the real impact of AI in the creative industries, to address them one by one or mixed together, We'll see. The format might evolve based on your feedback. The goal is really to give you some answers today and to understand what the concrete impact is and how the players who have already integrated this technology into their creative process, how do they analyze it? What is the very concrete feedback today, whether in terms of efficiency, savings, or quality, or what are the things that don't work? So yeah, feel free to leave us comments and don't hesitate to leave us the stars we need.
Stars on Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Spotify. It helps a lot with the podcast's discoverability. And we'll see you next time.